important to, if you mentioned a lot about building extraordinary systems, and I think it's very topical here to talk about the marketing division, so division 2 in the org chart, because if we get this part right, it makes division 3 so much easier to implement.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess marketing and sales is something that's foreign to all of us. But when you run a business, and I'm talking about running a business, not a practice, then you have to have all 7 divisions firing. And one of the big important divisions is Division 3 and Division 2, which is to do with marketing and sales. And the difference between marketing and sales is that marketing is about building awareness. So building awareness of your brand and building awareness of the products that you sell. So if people don't know who you are or they don't know what you sell, then they don't know to buy it off you. And I use this analogy where when you do marketing, it's a bit like fertilizing the soil. So if you constantly fertilize the soil, then one day when you seed, sow a seed in that soil, you'll come to fruition, as opposed to seeding the soil into barren ground. And if you seed your soil into barren ground, it's a waste of money. So you need to fertilize that soil first before you sell into it. And the more marketing you do, the less selling you need to do. So I'll just say that again: the more marketing you do, the less you need to sell. So in other words, at Chananella, we do a lot of marketing. So by the time a prospect comes to see us, and it doesn't matter who they see in Chananella, every person that's in Chananella says the same thing to me, that this prospect acts like they've known us forever. And, they get very personal where, our client managers never met them before. And that's because the marketing has built trust, as what Jamie said earlier. People have to go through a process. So the first process is about building awareness, and then building credibility, and then building trust. And then from trust, when they're ready to change accountants, then hopefully you've done the work so that they will choose you, because it is all about trust in our game, especially in our game. And what we sell is trust. And obviously that comes from credibility. So it's a long runway with marketing. So you have to do the work if you want to have, new clients coming to you. And often when we do marketing, we just focus on sales, and we don't focus on fertilizing the soil, meaning that in Chananella, we've got a database now of about 10,000 paying clients and about 15,000 prospects. They don't buy from us. They just like our newsletters. They like the seminars we run. They just know and like the brand. And then one day when they're ready to change accountants, hopefully we've done the work that they'll come and give us a chance to consider us. And firms need to do this. And I use this analogy that you can grow your business by catching butterflies with a butterfly net, which is going to, all the different meetings and the small business community, and joining up this group and that group. And that's a bit like catching butterflies with a butterfly net. I mean, it's very effective, but it's very slow. But I'd rather, and it's dependent on you. So it becomes people dependent. And if I take you out of there, if I take the butterfly catcher out of there, then that's the end of your business. So I'd rather create a garden that attracts butterflies to us. But to create that garden, you've got to invest. So generally, you should be looking at between 5 to 8% of your turnover to invest back into marketing. And if you're not investing that amount of money, then you're not you're not fertilizing the soil or creating that database of prospects So it's not just about someone's buying something from you today, but it's about building up that prospective database that potentially can buy from you in the future. So it's a long runway. It's a long-term plan, a game, if you like,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got to put aside a certain amount of your money, and I call it a balance sheet investment.
And Jamie, if you look back over the last 10 years or so, building Sky, how have you approached this? Because again, you have a fairly natural ability when it comes to sales and converting new clients, but your mentality towards building the butterfly garden as opposed to walking around with the net and it being reliant on you, how have you ingrained that into Sky over the last couple of years?
Yeah, before I met Ed and got involved in the mentoring side, our marketing was really ad hoc. So we would start and stop. I'll never forget we'd start the newsletters and do newsletters for 6 months and then stop, get too busy. I haven't got time for that. And so it was really ad hoc approach. And I think a lot of the time we do that in our own firms, but we also see our own clients do that. And, Ed just kept saying, you've got to invest. And another analogy Ed said to me was that with the marketing, it's like having a massive ball. And once you push that ball, the ball would get rolling. And it's important to keep pushing the ball and keeping the momentum up, because if you let that ball stop, then it's so much harder to start the ball rolling again. And that's essentially my experience with the marketing. And now for quite some years, we've consistently done, a fairly high quality newsletter, which I know some of the members have seen it as well. And it's just essentially continually posting high quality and just good information on your website. And I would say the biggest thing is persistency and consistency with marketing. Mm-hmm. They are the absolute key, because if you stop the marketing, it's so much harder to get it going. And SEO, it loves new content. And so, we these days we get consistent leads in, day out, just based on the content that's on our website and the information that we're putting out there.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think, we are talking about sales, but it is incredibly important to talk about this topic of marketing leading into sales, because it can do most of the heavy lifting for us, as Ed has mentioned, when it gets to the sales bit, because if we go through that process of building awareness and building credibility and building trust, it just makes when that and that quote on the slide that you can see there is the quote that should be in focus here, and something that we should always remember, because I think we get this bit wrong. We get to a point where we say, oh, we need to go on the client drive, we need to get new clients, and we need it now, so let's turn the marketing tap back on, because we turned it on last year, but then we got too many clients, so we turned it off, and then we'll turn it back on again. So it's this on off, and you stop that ball, and then you have to try and start it again, as opposed to gaining momentum and doing that consistently. And we'll do a clinic, everyone, on marketing activity and things like that, because that's a very broad topic as well. But we do want to hone in on the sales side of things at the moment, because there is a great opportunity, certainly this time of the year, to speak with existing clients, to do more sales and ask for referrals and things like that. But certainly that you can't make a client change accountants, but you must be there when they decide to. I think that's just something, if anything that you take away from this clinic today, it's that mentality. Ed, I just wanted to go back to you just briefly, because it is something that you mentioned in terms of growth strategies for traditional accounting firms, is to increase sales, we decide to bring a partner in. And back to your analogy of the butterfly net, that's another person with a butterfly net, as opposed to building that garden. So what's your view on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Often when we, and for different reasons, people can have a business model where they rely on people to grow their business. So typically when you do that, you then, bring in a partner, a finder to join you. And a lot of the big firms do that. Their model, their business model is to, bring in a partner that's a finder or someone that's out there catching butterflies. And often if you build a business model around people like that, then obviously when they retire, the whole growth stops. And in a lot of these really big firms, like the big fours, a lot of their policies are that, when you reach a certain age, you've got to retire and there's no equity. They don't pay you any equity out. And I think that's a really silly model because you're building it around people. Whereas the model that I've come up with is to build it around systems and processes so that you're not people dependent. So you don't have to go out there hunting for these finders. And often you'll read in the newspaper that, this big four firm, pinch this partner from that big four firm, and it's like a badge of honor. And I think that's crazy. I mean, that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it, of course, is if you don't have processes and systems like we do in Wize, then you have to have people to hold the whole thing together. So your people becomes your systems. And if you have people that becomes your systems, then you become people dependent again. And then, of course, they hold you to ransom because you're so dependent on these people. And often when a firm's growing and they don't focus on their systems or they don't know what systems to put in place, they'll invite another partner in to hold the whole thing together. And then when it grows again, they'll pull in another partner to hold the whole thing together. And typically you get to about $1 million per partner before they hemorrhage. And then they need to look for another partner because they're people dependent, not systems dependent. And when you look at the BRW's top 100 accounting firms, they're all got about $1 million per partner. So if it's a $2 million firm, there's around 2 partners. If it's a $5 million firm, there's 5 partners and so forth. And that's because they're people dependent, not systems dependent. And what Wize brings to the table is about systematizing 80% of it. So you can personalize the last 20%, and it's not dependent on you, it's dependent on the system. And when you're systems dependent, you're not held to ransom by anybody. And hence your business can run and pay you a passive income. And this is what I've achieved. And with 10 offices around Australia, and that's what Jamie's achieved as well. And a lot of the people that have taken on the Wize mentoring program has achieved that as well.
Yeah, and I think at the crux of that, it comes back to your mantra of building an extraordinary system over being reliant on extraordinary people, because, and that's certainly also looking at ourselves as removing ourselves as the business owner or the extraordinary person from the business. So it isn't as reliant on us, it's more reliant on the system itself.
Yes. And that of course, goes to the marketing as well. So in that same strand of thinking, the marketing is going to be systematized as well, and you've got to invest the money into it.
Yeah, and the system then creates that consistency, because if it is still reliant on humans, the consistency just disappears, I think.
Correct.